So Walden University defines being a scholar practitioner is someone who bridges the gap between academia and the real world, and they blend scholarly research with practical application to solve complex problems in their profession. So whether you are a student or faculty member, Walden has high expectations of you as a scholar practitioner, right? This means using research in your everyday life and work. The qualities of a scholar practitioner are right here, so you can see being a passionate lifelong learner. So as a scholar practitioner, you are always seeking to understand your specialty, your field, or connected fields, and you have a deep curiosity, drive, and commitment to solving pressing problems. So what are those problems and how do we find solutions? And that's fueled by a desire to improve the human condition, right? Scholar practitioners share their knowledge and original ideas, and they are constantly reading research, learning, teaching what they've learned, and growing as professionals. Right? These qualities come right from the Walden website, and they speak to the high expectations that the university has for its scholar practitioners. So we're going to go through a more in-depth exploration of these points through our presentation.
The quote that we have chosen for this particular slide is that scholar practitioners are passionate, lifelong learners who wish to gain an intimate understanding of their specialty and their profession. There are numerous benefits to reading and reviewing the current research. It helps you to keep up with new information and the changes in your profession and your field. It helps you to go beyond basic professional development, which can only give you so much in those sessions. It can help you solve local problems. It can help you discover the connections among the different fields in the sciences. It can help you explore different perspectives among the researchers who present these articles. The Seymour study in 2004 had examined 76 first-round students who commented on a checklist of possible benefits derived from the literature. And they also added gains that were not on this list. The students were overwhelmingly positive, and 91% of all statements referenced gains from their experiences. And the benefits described were of 7 different types. They were expressed as percentages of all reported gains. There were personal and professional gains. There was a comment of thinking and working like a scientist, of gains in the various skills in their field, helping them to clarify and confirm their career choice and their career plans, including graduate school. They also expressed enhanced career and graduate school preparation and a shift in attitude toward learning and working as a researcher. And interestingly enough, in the study, only 1% was outside of those factors that we just mentioned.
But it's really nice that when we can share the research that's out there, that we can find the right research for our fields. I know we talked about when we were creating this presentation that sometimes it might even be that one of your teammates might need some help in the classroom, or might need help if you're in another field like nursing or things, and that you're reading an article, but then that might help that other person. So finding the right research, having a deep curiosity, drive, and commitment to solving problems inside their field, that article that you might be reading might really help somebody with their jobs. Lomax in 2007 says that you should think about, can I improve my practice so that it is more effective? Can I improve my understanding of this practice so as to make it more just in your field? Or can I use my knowledge and influence to improve the situation? There's a lot of different ways that we can use our research that we're looking at.
Yeah, this is Bill Schultz. So you brought up some very interesting venues for being able to both conduct and share and talk to folks about research, including social media, and that kind of piqued my curiosity. This question came up in an earlier session this morning, which is, everybody thinks that having an opinion is sufficient in terms of being an expert sometimes. And how can we, because we we all, we get our degrees, we go off into the world, and we have a PhD in some field or a doctorate in some field. And it seems that at some level that at that point we think we're experts and that people should listen to us, and we have this sort of what I call the expert opinion fallacy. How do we help our students not fall into that trap? Because I think what you described is really interesting, but it does require continued discipline, right? That's a word I didn't really see here. That we do the research and that we continue to try to stay literate in how we evaluate work, how we evaluate sources that are out there. So I was just kind of curious, because so many people seem to be using, academics that is, seem to be using Twitter, and I kind of scratch my head and wonder how that could be, because now we're in the domain of really opinion at that point. How can we avoid falling into that trap?
I try to do those kinds of things in a more of a controlled environment. I understand what you're saying about sharing and trying to not come across as being an expert, but it's more of sharing like you're wanting to share what you've learned, not because you think you're better than this student or this person because you have the doctorate degree or anything. It's just because you're trying to stay current. And I think if your workplace allows and sets up these kind of environments, and so that it kind of comes from the administration, which we did set up, like a Facebook account so that we could share. And I did allow my staff to share about their conferences and share ideas that they were trying out in the field, because we were trainers anyhow. And so we were all doing that together. And if somebody was going to school, whether it was they were earning their doctorate degree or their master's degree, we also allowed that time to be able to share. So I think for the students going out in the field, depending on what, environment they're in, they have to be able to work within their environment and not come across as an expert in the field. Just because I have a doctorate degree now, I don't think I'm any better than what I was, years ago when I didn't have a doctorate. I just think that we need to keep staying current in the field and find a way to share that, but share it appropriately and share it in a controlled environment with social media. So if you're on Twitter, keep it professional. Does that make sense?
That approach is really interesting, and you sort of build a community of interest or a community of inquiry who all have the discipline or are learning the discipline of sharing resources, sharing frameworks, sharing assessment of what is happening in the field. That's ideal use of social media. It's unfortunately not what I see a lot.
And I think you could do that via blogs. I think you could do it via Facebook. I think you could do it via Twitter. I'm not a Twitter person as much, but I think you could still do that in a controlled way. But I know you can do it with blogs and Facebook because I've done both of those.
That's great. Thank you.
It's basically a desire to improve the human condition. To me, anytime that you're synthesizing the research, why are you wanting to share that research? Again, it goes back to when I was an administrator, I had to write a lot of grants, and we had to be able to write the grants for our training program. To be able to write the grants, we had to have the research to back up the grants. So most of our jobs anymore, whether we're in academics, whether we're in nursing or doctors, we have to have all of this data now. And so if we have the data, we need to have the research to back it up. And it may help us, and our colleagues as well. It can help you earn a grant. You have to make it more layman terms, because I had to present a lot of times to funders. So the funders wanted to see the data to show that we were being effective trainers and that we were changing out in the field, making changes out in the field. However, we had to also have that research to back it up and then make it in layman terms so that the funders could understand, because all of our fields, no matter what field we're in, I'm in early childhood, but we all have those synonyms and acronyms that we use, and you have to make sure that the funders understand that. But it can help you find a grant, which I used many, many times in my positions. It might even help you if you had a conflict at work with one of your, again, I've been an administrator before, it might help you be able to solve that problem. You might be able to find an article that might be able to help your employees. It could help you, test the research. Maybe you found an article and you're lucky enough. I was fortunate enough to work at a community college that allowed us to try out a lot of different things. And so sometimes you might be able to see something like, again, we were trainers, and so we might find something, a different way to gather the data for our training. And so maybe we're going to try that out, or maybe we're going to try out how we're going to present and do transitions during our training or something. It gives you a way to be able to test the research of the articles. And again, I still think it's important that you come back as a group so that you can discuss, this did not work, don't ever try this. Please don't ever do it this way again. For example, I will not use a headset again. I learned today that my son's gaming headset does not work for this training. And I'm going to make sure I tested the research today, and it didn't work on this technology field. So it's a way for you to share with others of what you're reading and if it works or not. And then it also gives you time to reflect. I think it's important. We mentioned the blogs and the social media and Facebook and different ways to be able to reflect. I like to keep a journal, and for example, I'll keep a journal for today's training of what worked, what didn't work, and things like that, and what I'd like to add next time I present this topic. And I think it's important when you test out your research, if you've read an article and you want to try that out in your workplace, that you keep data, that you test it, you retest it, and keep track of that. It's almost like little miniature studies that you're doing in the field. And sometimes people earn their doctorate degrees or bachelor's, master's, doctorate degrees, and they feel like they don't want to go to school anymore. But it's not going to school. It's just keeping track of what is working well in your field and being able to share and continue to keep getting better at your job, whether you're a teacher or whatever kind of job that you might have.
So we talked a great deal about this a slide ago in an impromptu manner, but sharing research. So scholar practitioners share their knowledge, right? And Dr. Curtis already covered a number of ways to do this, and you all already have really great ways to do this. So professional organizations, I find professional organizations to be a great way to share information and to share research. And I actually saw in the group chat that there are nursing organizations that are on Twitter. And so that's how they're sharing research. They're actually connecting that professional organization piece with the social media piece. I come from an education background. There are a lot of education organizations that do the same thing, that have blogs, that have Facebook, that have Instagram. So there is a way to connect the two, but hooking up with those professional organizations and networking at those organizational events is a great way to share research and also just learn new research. Having group meetings, which I think we read, having like a brown bag lunch, meeting with peers, a supervisor, a colleague who's in your field or not in your field, to share ideas, to brainstorm. You can share research just in your conversations with peers. I share research all the time with my colleagues, just things that I've read that I think are interesting. Not that it's better or worse, but just things to discuss. Dr. Curtis mentioned blogs, which are another great way to share research, as long as your blog is a professional blog and the purpose of it is to share information. Again, with social media kind of keeping it clean and that being the purpose of what you're sharing, so that it is factual and it is research and it's not going in the other direction. Another way to share research is to just collaborate with your peers. You know, a teacher might collaborate with a mental health counselor about behavior issues, you know, to find out what's happening, what research is happening over in the mental health field that can help me here in the teaching field to move towards a better practice. In some of the research that we found, research by Beach, published in 2014, he said that people generally respond positively to anecdotes and storytelling. So using the narrative approach to explain your research often comes across better and people are more likely to receive it. So he says that the ideal platform is really a blog where you can tell your research stories and then share them with your network on social media. So having that blog where you're writing about what you've learned or you're posting research from other places, and then you can tweet out the link to your blog or post the link to your blog on Facebook. And then affecting positive social change. So when we share research, we are hoping to affect positive change, right? Scholar practitioners are constantly evolving in their careers as they research, learn, teach, and grow. Social change is a ripple effect. So when you make a small change over time, it can lead to bigger changes, right? For example, if I read an article with a friend over lunch and that friend then shares it with 2 other colleagues over dinner, it creates a ripple effect. And that information has then been transferred from person to person to person. Everybody's going to have their own take on it, but the information is being disseminated. In order to create social change, we often need to create an evidence-based action plan, right? This is where we're using the research and really reading it critically to figure out what has been effective and what can be applied to your own setting, because not everything you read is reliable and not everything you read is going to be applicable to your particular circumstances. So figuring out what is applicable and then putting together a plan to implement it, right? And be prepared to take the lead there, because often when you're the one that proposes, hey, I read this thing and this is what it says, and I think we should do this here, your supervisor often goes, great, you take the lead on that, right? So be prepared then to be a leader of social change. With all of this research, you can also be advocating for a cause, right? Usually we're at Walden because we firmly believe in affecting positive social change. So there's typically something that we each feel really passionate about changing, and that's the cause that we want to advocate for. So we can use the research to support a new initiative or get everybody on board with a new idea, right? So for example, if you read a study that said that casual dress Friday improved workplace productivity by 20%, you might want to advocate for that to be implemented at your workplace. You know, and just rallying everybody together and getting them on board. And then really be the social practitioner that is going to help move the field forward, right? Use the research that you've already read to create new research. You have an opportunity to do that here at Walden through your capstone, your thesis. Take that research and test it in your local setting, put it into action and do action research. And that loops back to what Dr. Curtis was saying about reflecting and keeping a journal and seeing, is this actually applicable in my setting, or did I need to change it in some way? And then you're creating more information that you can then share. Hussein, Plummer, and Breen, who published an article in 2018, believe that field catalysts think about a roadmap for change. So when you read research articles or collect data yourself, you are a catalyst to social change, right? Making a roadmap would assist you in being the change agent or field catalyst, right? That's your action plan. And then you can be that catalyst in your own organization, right? And then the question is, how can you then take that and change the community or even your field in general? So by creating kind of a vision of what would I like to see, what kind of change do I want to make, you can create this map, and then piece by piece you can really see the differences. So this is Elizabeth. I just want to thank you all for joining us this afternoon. We've had a great time presenting. I hope the information was helpful. I'm really loving reading the chat and reading how everybody is already or is looking forward to be social change agents and all of the things that they're going to do, and that you were all able to connect with one another, because it looks like some of you were kind of able to pair up and work on some things together. So again, thank you for joining us, Dr.
Yeah, thanks.